get cracking. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Learn Lounge. Here at Springpod, we're an early careers platform designed to help young people take their next steps in life, be it employment, apprenticeships, college or university. And as part of our new Learn Lounge series, as you can see, we'll be bringing you some inspirational career stories by experts in a range of fields, covering everything from polar exploration to entrepreneurship, with some well-known names joining us along the way. Now, we have had some fantastic speakers so far. So, like I said earlier, if you haven't had the chance to catch up on those talks yet, we recommend you go and check out the replays on the Learn Lounge website. I'm Joe, and I'll be hosting today's session of Learn Lounge. Just a couple of pointers before we start. The talk should last around 45 minutes. Don't forget to ask questions to our guests using the Q&A feature on the website. Join the conversation on social media, hashtag Learn Lounge, and thank you to our 1,000th follower as well for joining us. And we'll be raising money for the Children's Trust as well, and we'll be talking more about that later on. But for now, let me introduce today's guest speaker. We're really honoured to have Mark Warburton, the manager of QPR, with us. Now, if you are a football fan, Mark is someone who needs no introduction whatsoever. He's been a professional footballer and subsequently a manager for some incredible teams, including Brentford, who smashed Swansea not that long ago, Glasgow Rangers, Nottingham Forest, and now Queen's Park Rangers, QPR. But did you know that Mark's also been a very successful trader? Well, in today's session, Mark's going to give us a quick recap of his inspiring career journey and even share a few of the brilliant life lessons that he's learned along the way. So, Mark, welcome to Learn Lounge. We're very excited to have you here.
Joe, good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, Joe. As you say, I'm going to try and speak about the last 40 years, really. Hopefully, I won't bore you too much. And I'm happy to take the Q&A at the end. And any questions you may have, please ask away. So for me, Joe, it was very much a case of I was a competitive kid at school. I won't bore you with a school story, but all I remember is having some very dedicated teachers. I was very lucky to be good at sport. I was very lucky to go to a very good school. And they allowed me to do my sport, football, cross-country, track, whatever it may be, as long as the grades never suffered. And the lesson I learned was, their dedication, their discipline, but more about the fact that you can succeed academically and sporting. And that was a lesson that stayed with me and is very relevant further down the learning curve, so to speak. So for me, I left school, the only one to leave, to pursue a career as a young professional at Leicester City. And the manager changed. And football being football, the guy that came in was a guy called Jock Wallace, a legend at Glasgow Rangers. He would never believe I would take his job some 35, 40 years later. But he was different. I'm not saying the critical way. Everyone's got their own style. But he was very old school, very much Royal Marines type. And I was used to the learning environment. And I knew his style was very much against mine. And very quickly, in truth, went off the game, didn't enjoy that at all. And I found myself at 18, what do I do? Do I pursue a career in the game? What do I look at? And it was my mum who saw an advert, Joe, for a competitive individual, good with numbers. And I was lucky. I found maths okay. I should have joined your course the other day, but I found maths very easy. And I joined, I had an interview for a small regional American bank. No idea what it was. They love football. So the interview was 2 minutes about the job and half an hour about football. And I started on the Monday morning. And literally, I had no idea what I was going into. And I was entered the world of the city, as people call it, which has so many different facets to it. But I was entering the currency world, the currency market, where you buy and sell one currency against another. And to give a little bit of colour why that exists, is down to trade. For centuries, it's trade. So an example might be that Mercedes sell $100 million worth of cars in the States and need to bring back in euros. They sell $100 million, they buy euros. Now, if the people in the audience can imagine the hundreds of billions of dollars every single day, the Nissans, the Renaults, the pharmaceuticals, all the exporters, importers, huge trades go through every day. And I now found myself involved in that market. But in truth, the bank was if I compare it to a football club, would be a small League Two club. So low risk, nice guys, but set in their ways. And I joined it, and I don't want to give you this wrong impression, but I was a very competitive animal. I wanted to move forward and wanted to learn. And I saw guys who were just going about the same, plodding about. So I couldn't believe that London's time zone was so perfect. You come in early in the morning and you have Asia's afternoon, Hong Kong, Tokyo. You have Europe all day. You have the North America join you at lunchtime, and you have the West Coast join you late in the afternoon. So London has this fantastic time zone, which is why it is so pivotally important. And I couldn't understand why the guys wouldn't get in earlier and speak to Asia to learn more about the market. So I found myself the first one in. I'd get up at 5:15. I'd get in by 6:30. I'd talk to Asia for an hour before the guys came in. And that was just me trying to understand more about the market itself. So I was sent to North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina head office to go and learn. Great time living over there. This was 1984, and a good few months over there learning from some really good people who are still friends. 86, I come back, and in truth, when you come back from overseas, there's nowhere to put you. So they put me in a desk and, gave me a currency pair they'd never traded before, dollars against Japanese yen. So here I am with no customers, no natural business, on a desk, just trying to get myself started. So one key point I wanted to mention, when I was in North Carolina, I coached. If you had an English accent, they used to assume you play football. And whether it was the girls' team or young boys' team or high school team or the bank team, I just coached football, just made it enjoyable for them. So now here I am back in London now, and I'm trying to establish myself and want to prove myself as a young trader. I am 23, 24 years of age and very, very keen to push forward. And I phoned Tokyo banks to try and get their business, Japanese business, and I must have phoned 6 months, nothing back. They had their own counterparties and they couldn't really call me. I couldn't get anything out of them. And I tried and tried, Joe, constantly. And you have to give up. And I must be honest, it would be very easy to throw the towel in there. I kept on calling. In 1987, early, I got the chance to go to Tokyo at a conference. Now, what did I know about Japanese dealers? I knew they loved their golf, and I knew they loved their whiskey. I don't want to give the wrong impression, but they speak about their whiskey, and they always about their golf and everything else. So I went armed over there with sleeves of golf balls and as many bottles of whiskey as I could get through duty free. So I turned up, and I've got to be, I don't want to paint this really rosy picture to the audience. It was nerve-wracking. I was 24. The senior traders in Japan never spoke English. You always went through a translator. And the street signs, I couldn't find some of the meeting venues, and I was so nervous going into these meetings. But the golf balls, as stupid as that, gave us a conversation point. So we could start talking about sport and everything else. Now, I had never had a call out of Tokyo in all of that time. I went back in on the Monday morning, and this picture you see there, the screen lit up. Now, I was at a small bank, as I said to you, low risk. They want you to trade in $1, $2, and $3 million lots, which sounds a lot to the audience, but is very small in city terms. And I walked in, and the first call I never forget was BHF Bank in Tokyo, dollar yen in 50 million. And I'm the first one in. I'm on my own. What do you do? And we quoted them, and they dealt all day. And my budget then those days was to make $1,000 a day, and that day we made nearly $100,000, which 5 months work. But it was done through the cold calling and getting Tokyo banks finally on side, and that was a catalyst. From there, it just grew. The Tokyo banks kept calling. I would go and visit them 2 or 3 times a year, Hong Kong, Singapore, to get their business and to earn their trust. And you had to be very respectful, and you had to be very deliberate about how you went about the relationship. But it was very important to be seen. And I'll touch on this throughout the chat. So over the next 2 years, I was very lucky. My reputation grew. They thought I had some secret Japanese business partner. It wasn't. It was just meeting the banks. 1989 now, I'm headhunted to go and be a senior dealer at the biggest Scandinavian bank, KOP, working with some fantastic people. A bigger bank now, again, compared to football. I'm talking of a top championship type club. And bigger business, better people, and your reputation is growing. You're dealing more overseas, you're spending time overseas, and everything is moving in the right direction. You're married, you've got young children, etc. So I was in a good place. 1995, I'm asked to go back to my first bank. They've now merged, and they've now become a powerhouse. Nations Bank is now one of the big Premier League type banks. So I go back to this huge institution where the turnover every day, I'm trying to give the audience an idea of the risk and responsibility young guys had, but I would turn over between 1.5 and 2.5 billion dollars per day. we had 10 or so guys doing that. So as a desk, we might turn over $20-25 billion quite comfortably every single day.
Every day?
Every day, because you're buying and selling. So someone, I don't want to get dragged away from it, but if someone asks you for a price in 200 million and they sell, you've got to go and buy. You've now done 400 million. And you might then go with that trade as information. So now you've done 500 million. That's one trade. So you can imagine that when they talk about the risk and the responsibility and the rewards available, yes, if you do well, you get paid. If you don't, you get sacked. And I quite like that black and whiteness. I like to know my targets. I like to know what happens if I do well, what happens if I don't do well. So that's no problem. So we're growing. I went to Chicago. I moved to Chicago. My family bought a house to head up the yen operations over there. Great opportunity working in the Sears Tower, looking Lake Michigan, a fantastic opportunity. Again, growing your knowledge all the time. Again, coaching. Wherever I went in the world, Joe, I'd be coaching, walk over the park, and it'd be a girls' team or, as I say, a high school team, and really enjoyed that experience. Again, just making sure that the participants enjoyed themselves. What I want as a football player from a football session. So carried on. I came back to London. I was headhunted to go to one of the big Japanese bond houses, Nomura. Again, very fortunate to be in such a position. I worked there for my best boss I ever worked for, a guy called Mike Cornford, who I learned so much from and still take his lessons now into football in terms of his organization, his subject knowledge. He knew every market deeply. The way his man management skills, he had an awe about him. He had not a fear, but he was certainly more than respectful. But he looked after you. If you worked for him, he absolutely supported you to the core. So by far the best boss I ever worked for. Really enjoyed that. 1998, 99, they moved the operations back to Tokyo. And I moved to work for AIG, which people remember recently sponsored Manchester United. They were the biggest American corporate at the time. So now I've got my children. I'm a senior chief dealer. We're in charge of responsible Premier League type size of bank. And again, you're constantly working. Now, everything's going well. In 2001, my son was now aged 8, talented football player, loved the game as most kids do. And he was asked to go and join the Watford Academy. And my wife would take him most times, but occasionally when I did go from work, they asked about my football career and whatever else. And they asked what qualifications I had in coaching, and totally ignorant on my part. I didn't even know a qualification existed. Then they start to tell me. Now in football, for the audience, there's levels 1 to 5. 1 being park, team, boys, girls, Cub Scouts, whatever it may be. And level 5 being elite level Premier League, where only 20 such awards are given out every year. So there's your career path as a football coach. And that to me lit the touch paper. That to me was, I enjoy coaching. I was starting to feel that I wanted to do something else. You live once in life, and what are you going to do? And that was a real starting to like that blue touch paper, as I mentioned. Still now I'm at AIG, massive business going through. But I started doing my badges 1, 2, and 3 quite quickly, 3 being maybe a 9-month course. So I'm combining this, Joe, with billions of dollars every day, chief dealers and what's going on. So it's a tough ask, and the day I don't want to paint this really rosy picture for the audience. It was up at 4:30. You get 5:12 train in at 5:45 in the morning. When you weren't coaching, you were getting home at 7:30. It's a tough, existence, and calls through the night as well, right the way through. But I'm doing my badges now. Now I wanted level 4. I was hungry. I knew that my age, I'm now at 40 plus. I'm now keen to try and catch up on time. I should have maybe waited 2 or 3 years, got experience coaching, but I knew I'd coached in the States. So I wanted more of that. I'm on a level 4 course now. I moved to Royal Bank of Scotland as senior dealer. At the time, they were probably the 4th biggest bank in the world. So senior dealer there. We had big responsibilities. And I'm on an A license course with the likes of Ray Wilkins and Clayton Blackmore and Adrian Heath and Dean Saunders, guys who are Premier League household names, going back to their respective clubs. And I'm going back to Royal Bank of Scotland to trade. And it was a bit surreal, but I knew now that passion was burning brightly, what I wanted to do. And it came to a head probably one day. If you look at one moment in your career, I was due to coach that night. Watford Academy had asked me to come and do some part-time coaching. I was due to coach, and I was doing a passing drill on the back of a deal slip. I'm literally saying player A to player B to player C and doing this drill. And the guys jumped up and shouted out for a price in $1 billion in my currency, a huge trade coming through. And everyone jumps. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. Everyone jumps up, ready to support me. I'm going to be the focal point on my currency pair. And all I could think about was, I'm going to miss training. I'm going to miss the under 13 coaching. And I've got this trade coming in that I would have worked so hard for so many years to get this type of business. And that was my first thought. And I was there for hours. I missed a session. We made good money out of the trade. But all I could think really, Joe, was I've missed that session. And that's what I knew. So I knew I had to leave. I'd done okay for myself financially. I put some money aside. I knew that I wanted to change that career and I wanted to pursue it. But I knew that I didn't have the depth of knowledge that you've got to have. And I'm going to say to the people that you pursue your passion, but you've got to give yourself the best chance of success. And to do that, and I don't care whether it's building, architecture, music, design, baking, whatever your passion is, give yourself the best chance of success by learning your subject. How do I do it? I cold called all the Tokyo banks before to get business. So I literally cold called all of the European clubs. I got on Google, I got the reception of FC Barcelona, for example, and phoned up and asked to speak to the academy. Why the academy? I just presumed I had no playing career to speak of. I had no Frank Lampard or John Terry or Steven Gerrard. I never had that type of playing career. Therefore, what was I going to rely on? So I always thought I'd be in the academy. I got rebuffed by every single club. Literally, who are you calling up? Quite rightly so, I'm sure. But then finally, one guy called Diogo Matos, who's a dear friend, who was academy director rather at Sporting Lisbon. He now is actually at FIFA as head of performance, a very senior guy. But he was the guy, Diogo, who said to me, if you can get on a plane and come over and play golf with me, you have 5 hours chatting. And it was literally a case of jumping on a plane, doing what you have to do. And I played golf. We got on very well. I spent a week at Sporting Lisbon. And of course, he opens doors to Ajax, who opened doors to Barcelona, who opened doors to Valencia, to Borussia Dortmund, to PSG, and so on. So literally, very similar to the Tokyo call in the banks, you have to be persistent. You have to don't allow a setback to set you back, so to speak. You've got to make sure you deal with it. But that was now, I had a year. That guy there, Diogo, that you can see, an outstanding gentleman, Portuguese international, famous player in Portugal. But he helped me and still does beyond belief. And that really was, for me, a massive source of education, of learning. And now, when Watford offered me a job, full-time job, I knew I had the knowledge. I knew I could deal with questions. However, and I don't want to sound holier than thou, but I had the chance to go to Watford full-time. I had the chance to go back in the city with a major corporate. And again, money-wise, you couldn't compare. And it was literally 9 times the money to go in the city or to take this job at Watford Academy. But there was no doubt in my mind what I had to do. There was no doubt that was the passion, and you've got to pursue it. You live once, and I wanted to do that. And it was a big risk for the family. And as I say, I don't want to paint this rosy picture where all you do, it's hard work and you have to take risk and you have to make good decisions. And I was very lucky, very, very lucky. So now I find myself as a young academy coach. Now, 1 minute you're dealing billions of dollars in charge of desks, and now you're just an academy coach at Watford Football Club. But I wanted to push on. And I remember that all the clubs I'd visited in Europe had schools where the young players would go to school every day but train twice a day. So we worked with the Harefield Academy. We had 55 boys, years 7 to 11, many of whom now are on to still professional footballers. Very proud of that. Aidy Boothroyd was the manager. He made me academy director. Sean Dyche, the Burnley manager, was my youth team coach. We're still dear friends. Malky Mackay, the Al Cardiff manager, was first team coach. And then Brendan Rodgers came in to replace Aidy. So we had a pool of different people, different experiences that we could all tap into. And it was a really fruitful time in that respect. Throughout that, at the end of the period of Watford, I met a guy called Matthew Benham. And Matthew is now the owner of Brentford Football Club. And got Got on very well with Matthew. He was trying to buy Brentford and had a few problems. Watford had some very serious financial issues. I thought there was any chance of Matthew buying Watford. I made the introductions, but that was never going to happen. And as I say, I got a phone call. I left Watford. I had a disagreement with someone who was trying to be equally as competitive, I guess. And I left Watford, and I got a phone call from Matthew. He'd set the manager. Would I come and coach the first team at Brentford? It was January 2011, I believe. And that was the invitation. And for the first time, I thought I got a chance here of working with first team players. I said to you earlier, I never, ever thought that would happen because of my lack of playing background. So now here I am. Sit up all night on Google, look at the players' names to make sure that when you go in, same as visiting the Tokyo Banks, show them respect, show them structure, show them that you know what you're talking about, and make it enjoyable, make the session enjoyable, that they can learn from. It has to be conducive to learning development, but they've got to enjoy what they do. So that went well. We were 18th in League One in January. I think we finished 10th in League One that year. And I was excited now. Now I really had that bug. That fire was burning bright, if I'm honest. And I wanted a job. But Matthew gave it to a guy called Uwe Rosler, who was the old Man City and German international. And he made me sporting director. And what that did, Joe, was it gave me the opportunity to create and to hire the medical, the analytical staff, the sports science staff, the recruitment, etc. That really allowed me that big opportunity. And many of the staff are still there. In fact, I'm really proud of that. But that was a great learning curve. Great learning curve, dealing with the agents, doing the players' contracts, working with the board and the CEO. Again, very steep learning curve. But if your passion's there, you want to keep on learning. Then Uwe left. 18 months later, 2 years later, Uwe left to go to Wigan, who had come down from the Premier League. And Matthew offered me the chance to be a first team manager. So always be thankful to him for that trust. And I find myself now on a touchline. Now you can think, great, you've arrived. But for me, I'm always wary of where am I vulnerable? Where am I exposed? And I knew I never had that playing career that I mentioned to you earlier. And I've met someone called Davy Weir. Many of you will know, I hope, Davy, who magnificent at Everton for many, many years in the Premier League, Glasgow Rangers, captain, Scottish international, top individual. And I wanted David to be my assistant. So David joined me. So I had his knowledge and experience. We had a great recruitment man in Frank McParland. And at Brentford, we went for it. We got promotion that year with Wolves into the Championship. And there was a fearlessness about us, probably a naivety. If I'm honest, the audience, there was naivety about how I approached certain things in terms of, leaving 3 or 4 up at corners, or we did it our way. But it worked. And we got into the Championship. We were favourites to be relegated. And we were in the top 6 most of the season. And we just missed out on the Premier League, losing to Middlesbrough in the playoffs. So a great achievement by the players. But I had my first run-in with an owner. I say run-in. It's Matthew's club. I'm saying to everyone, you never forget the fact that he or she, the owner, pays the bills. They write the checks. Never forget that fact. And Matthew wanted to bring in a number of overseas players in January. We were, I think, second or third in the table, and I wanted to do it at the end of the season. And then I find out that Matthew's interviewing for my job, literally. So I met with him, and he's very honest. And I said, if we get promotion, am I still going to be sacked? He went, yes. So I knew where I was. I stayed on to it. We agreed to stay in the end of the season. But again, you can rant, you can rave. But the fact is, they're the owners, and it's their club, it's their business. And you have to respect that fact. And I think you have to maintain your dignity. So that was very important for me. So again, my CV was strong. So now as I leave Brentford, my CV is strong. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of offers of where to go to. And then I got the call from Glasgow Rangers. You see the picture there of Andre Gray at Brentford. There's a fearless bit of it. Now I move on to Rangers. And this is a football institution. The Old Firm game with Celtic is probably one of the biggest derbies, the biggest derby in world football. 50,000 every home game. And a huge expectation, a fantastic history about the club. And this was a huge step up. And Davy Weir's knowledge and the experience of the club, he took them to UEFA Cup final, where 300,000 Rangers fans took over Manchester. This gives you an idea of the size of this club. But I felt ready. I felt ready for the responsibility through my background in the city. I felt comfortable in my subject knowledge. But again, a steep learning curve. I'm saying to people all the time, don't see that as a threat. The learning curve is how you get better. You make mistakes, you only learn from your mistakes. The media, for example, in Scotland is unlike anything you've ever seen down here. 20 pages every day on Rangers and Celtic. Radio shows every night. You have to prepare for every word that you say. Every word you talk to the press is jumped upon. And it was a real learning curve, but massive exposure for players as well. But in the first year there, they'd been down and they'd been relegated by the authorities. They're working their way back up. In the first year, we got promotion back to the Premier League. We won the Training League Cup, and we beat Celtic in a famous semi-final and got to the Scottish Cup final. We unfortunately lost it, but got to the Scottish Cup final. So the first year was very good, and we were in good shape. And again, you're getting used to this fantastic organisation, meeting some great people, constantly learning. But the second year now, my KPIs, my targets were set by the board. And again, I'm trying to emphasise to the people watching, I came from a world in the bank where the KPIs were everything. Here's your budget for the year. If you make that, you do well. If you don't, these are the consequences. Now in football, it's far more blurry, far more, it's not so black and white. And the KPIs for the second season were to keep building the squad, to get strong performance in the league, like mid-table in the league. And then year 3 was non-negotiable. We had to get into European football. So fine. If I couldn't get Rangers into Europe in year 3, I deserved to lose my job. Absolutely. So Celtic, as you see now, Brendan Rodgers came in to Celtic and they invested. They knew Rangers were coming strong. And there's the first game we had at Parkhead in front of 63,000. And an incredible privilege to be involved in these games and be at this club. But this second year, Celtic had their best ever year in their history. Unbeaten year. In their 100-odd year history, this was their best ever stellar year. So we were at Christmas, early in New Year, we are 20-odd points behind them. We're second in the table, fine, but we're 20-odd points behind them. And the board panicked. I think the board panicked, and you find yourself sacked. So you've got promotion, you've won the Training Cup, you've got to the Cup final, second in the table, but you're sacked. And again, you have to face the fact every bone in your body wants to scream and hurl anger and etc. You can't. You have to maintain dignity. They're the owners. It's their baby. It's their choice. And as I say, it was always a privilege in my mind to be involved with a club like Glasgow Rangers. And any manager have that on your CV. I am very fortunate. So you leave Glasgow angry. Now, Brendan actually said to me, Mark, take 3 or 6 months off to review progress made, lessons learned, etc. But I was keen to work, Joe. I like being busy. I like being challenged. I'm competitive. And 2 weeks later, Nottingham Forest came calling, another European giant, the huge club. And new owners came in and literally 2 weeks later called me and offered me the job. Now, I'm going to refer quickly to the owners again. Now, the KPIs for Nottingham Forest, they were in the relegation places, in danger of going to League One, and we avoided relegation. We went into the new championship. And I'm ready for it. You can see from the pictures, the pressure involved in games is very intense. You have to enjoy it. But it really is draining and does take it out of you. So here we are, new season at Forest, and we're looking forward to it. And the KPIs were reduce the age of the squad, which was 29, reduce the number of the squad, which was 34, 35 players, and get to mid-table to start building the club up again. So you know what your key targets may be. So New Year's Eve, we are 12th in the table. The average age is now 23, and the size of the squad is 24. So from my banking background, we've hit every single target, absolutely bang on. We're in great shape, and you get sacked. And that's football. And as I say, you cannot allow a setback to set you back. You can sit there and your CV will read sacked from here, sacked from here. And it really hurts your pride. It hurts your character. You think, you want to get your story across, but you have to maintain dignity. So that was a hard one. That was a real hard one to be sacked from Nottingham Forest when we've achieved every target. But again, it's their prerogative. And I think you have to be very, very aware of that fact. They're the owners. Don't show a lack of respect because it will come back to bite you. What goes around comes around. I'm a firm believer in that in life. And as long as you behave in the appropriate way, I think it bears you in good stead. So what do you do with your time? do you sit there and just reflect and say, I've done really well, I've got my level 5 pro license now, I was a highly qualified coach, my CV was strong. What do you do? If you stand here, everyone else just goes past you. You have to keep on learning. I see the MLS in America as being one of the big 4 leagues in world football in the near future. So I want to learn more about it. They have their own rules and regulations, which I'm really intrigued by. So I spent time in New York. I spent time in Boston with Brad Friedel. I spent time in Seattle, San Jose, Vancouver, just trying to improve my knowledge over the next year. Very similar to leaving the city and going around to the European clubs. You have to keep improving your knowledge. Otherwise, you fall behind. I had more than a couple of interviews to take jobs in the States. I'm still intrigued by the North American market. But in the meantime, I got a phone call from Les Ferdinand at QPR. Obviously, Les, very famous player, and done a great job at QPR as director of football. And had some really good interviews with him and the owners, and very impressed by their vision for the club and the answers they gave to my questions, by the quality of their questions they ask. And if I can sound like a bit of an old man here to the audience, but when you have an interview, ask the questions. The trouble in football is too many people have been out of work for a lengthy period of time and need the job. And therefore, they don't ask the searching questions that they have to ask. But for any young person, I think the employer or potential employer is more impressed by you asking the right questions. And what represents success in the role? What are my lines of communication? What do you expect from me? Where's my career path here? What do I do? These type of questions you have to ask. So as a football manager, obviously you're asking about budget and finance and what represents success. If we have a lower budget, is mid-table successful? Is it a sackable effect? You have to ask those searing questions. And I was very happy with the responses. And I'm privileged. Any manager right now, there's 92 clubs. There's very few British managers in the top 2 leagues. So you're a very privileged individual to be in that position. And it's a fine club, great history, great supporters. And as I say, it's a real privilege to be there, Joe. So that's really up to where we are now. And I was asked by you guys, were there any key lessons for me to get across to the audience? And I apologize if I sound like a very old man when I talk like this. But first for me is, who are you? Is know who you are. I was a competitive individual. I could never be in a repetitive job. Are you a leader, or do you like to be led? I've always liked to lead. Probably been described as busy, or never been intrusive or disrespectful, but I've always liked to lead from a young age. So if you like to be led, those people can do a fantastic job. You have to know who you are, what really drives you, what are your strengths and weaknesses. So the more you can know about yourself, and be honest, I didn't like criticism as a youngster, but constructive criticism, making mistakes is how we learn. So that was the first real key point for me. And then it leads on to what's your passion. And it's too easy to say, just pursue your passion. How do you do that? How do you pursue your passion? You have to arm yourself with the knowledge to make an impact, to give yourself the best chance of success. So just say, I love music, and I go and do it. It doesn't work that way, because there's too many people with the same passion. You've got to add value above and beyond the average person if you're going to succeed. So what is your passion? Know it. Does it consume you? Is it your last thought at night? Is it your first thought in the morning? If it is, that's your passion. And then you've got to find that way of giving yourself the best chance. And in turn, that leads on to the work ethic. I didn't want to paint this rosy picture. I remember getting a flat on a minibus, and Sean Dyche and I changing a tyre on a minibus in the pouring rain. It's not this glamour story. It's not. It was hard work. It was getting up at 4:30, getting home at 10:30, getting up at 4:30, working weekends. The academy at Watford was 85, 90-hour weeks, huge weeks. Your day off was Sunday afternoon after the game's finished. But you had to do that to get the respect, to earn a reputation in the game, and to improve your knowledge. That was a really key point. And then that leads naturally on. The final point for me, if I may, is I have a lot of millennials now in my playing squad. I have a lot of Generation Z, as they call them, coming through, 1998 to 2010, whatever. So that's to refer to. I have a lot of these people, and they tell me that, Gaffer, 5G, 6G, AI, this app, that app, Zoom, this, and absolutely, I'm all for technology, all for the advancements that it brings us, but never underestimate the importance of people skills, the importance of being able to talk to people face to face. I'm referring to Tokyo, to the football clubs. Barcelona, we went to see FC Barcelona, and a guy called Andoni Zubizarreta, famous goalkeeper, director of football. And he basically admonished me, told me to leave the room. Who was I to come in here and suggest this under-19s tournament we were doing? Who was I to come and speak to them? So it would have been easy to walk away. So we went away, we tweaked the presentation. I removed one badge, I put in there UEFA badge, I removed that and went back armed with a fine bottle of wine and an apology. And he was great. And FC Barcelona signed up for the tournament, and we had Barcelona, we had Bayern Munich, Dortmund, PSG, Liverpool, City, Tottenham, Sporting Lisbon, Anderlecht. All of these guys come in, but because you have to go and see them. So all I would say is never underestimate people's skills. And it doesn't. I'm not saying it comes naturally. There are many people watching who are shy and don't find that easy. I was outside of Tokyo Bank feeling physically sick that I had to go in there and speak to their senior dealer. But you'll find that the more you do it, the better you get, the more relaxed you get. But the people skills, meeting face to face, showing that you care, getting your passion for your chosen subject across is so important. So that's basically my last 40 years condensed, I hope, into 40 not too boring minutes.
No, honestly, Mark, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. I just wanted to pull up on a little point that you had as well. When you talked about being a leader or being led, would you say that it's fair to say that it's okay not to be a leader as well? You know, you have to do what's right for you, because I think quite a lot of people see, you know, in terms of management, it's not just the manager, you know, that they're the leader of a team of people, you know, not just players as well, but there's other coaching staff, you've got assistant managers as well. So if you suit better to being led and you can get the best out of your talents through that, then it's definitely okay to do that.
Absolutely. And I was very keen to stress that, Joe, that, you know, whatever your preference is or your character is, you can do outstanding work in either role. There can only be so many, you know, leaders, chiefs, Indians, however you want to describe it. There can only be so many, but it came naturally to me. And I'm not saying in an arrogant way, far from it. I'd be 6 years old, writing invitations for a football match to try and get all the guys to come down and play over the local park. That just came natural to, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to ensure it happened. But I've worked with some fantastic people, far more intelligent than myself, far more gifted in so many areas, but they needed to be led, they needed to be given a certain structure to work within, the parameters, and then they could just fly. And they did that. And as I say, they're far more intelligent, far more highly qualified than I will ever be. But I had the ability to lead them, and they had the ability to maximize the environment, which is why the environment is so important. You know, I spoke earlier about the respect, how you speak, you know, how you talk to people, give them the opportunity to learn and develop. And if you can do that, you could be in a really good place.
And one more thing from me, just before we move on to the Q&A. So if you have got any questions, if you're watching, make sure you drop them in the Q&A section as well. But earlier on as well, you mentioned that you spoke to the owners quite a lot of the clubs that you're working at, and it's important to make sure that you lead with dignity and that sort of thing. I think if you'd agree, it's important to stress for people in, you know, I wouldn't say regular jobs, because I don't think there's such thing as a regular job. But if you do end up leaving a job for any particular reason, business owners talk to each other, you know. So I think, would it be fair to say that if you'd have been sacked from a club and had stormed out, you know, one football club owner is speaking to another, and then that reputation follows you around, doesn't it?
Absolutely right. It's a great point you make. And don't forget the references, which are so important. But when I left Brentford, as I get on very well with Matthew, I've got huge respect for the job he's done with Brentford, the new stadium being built. So I'm very well aware of the job that he's done. But I was angry. Don't forget, we nearly got to the Premier League, you know, in our first season of Championship. But the fact is, he's the owner, as I said to you earlier, so I won't repeat that. But every interview I went to, I was very lucky to be offered some big clubs. Everyone said they were very impressed by the fact that I didn't I wasn't derogatory towards Matthew. So that stay with me. Never lose your dignity. It will come back to bite you. If you go out there and slag off an owner will talk to another owner. As you quite rightly said, Joe, that can damage you for years to come, and you can never shake that off. And I want to digress on something here. Be careful what you say, because it sticks with you. I was at Rangers, and someone said to Glasgow Rangers, and someone said to me, what's plan B? And I said, plan B is to do plan A better. What I meant was, within our formation, do our jobs better, tweak it better within that formation. It was a very sensible statement. I just want to do our main plan better. When you lose games of football, you get absolutely barracked with no plan B. He hasn't got a plan B. Look, he said it himself. You've got to be so careful, because things will stick with you. When I had, even the CEO of QPR would tell you, he heard an interview process, he hasn't got a plan B. So simple remarks, how you conduct yourself, think about everything that you say, because if you're not careful, they can be so hard to shake off.
Fab. Right, let's move on to some of the questions then that have come through. Loads of people have been sending questions in, which is great. So first question, what are Mark's core values as a manager or coach, and how many of these were transferable from his previous career in trading? That's a good question.
Great question. I really appreciate the question. I spoke to you about the boss, Mike Cornford, in the City. And I always think for him, honesty, integrity is so very important. Respect, so important. So Mike would be harsh and firm, but he was always respectful and absolute honesty. You may not like to, it's like speaking to a player. If you're not going to play a player in your team on Saturday, have the courtesy to tell him in a respectful manner. He may not like what he hears, but you've been honest with him. And I think that'll always hold you in good stead. So honesty, integrity, and respect for me are so very important. And then the small details of micro matters, timekeeping, your appearance, these type of, and I'm sure the audience will think I do sound like a very old man, but I'm not, because it's, early is on time is late, is a saying that I live by. If the meeting's at 9 o'clock, don't get there at a minute to 9. I had a player at a club, I won't say who, we would have analysis meetings at 1:15 every day. And there's 10, 12 minutes of clips on our opponents, our previous games, etc. And he thought it was absolutely great fun to get in at 1 minute 14 and 30 seconds to get into the meeting. I didn't pick him for the first 4 games. He couldn't work out why I wasn't being picked. It's only when he came in the office and said, why am I not being picked? If you want to take the mick and get in at 1:14 and 30 seconds, no problem. I'll keep on not picking you. So I'm trying to say in a respectful way, you come and ask a question, show me the respect and I'll show you the respect. So I hope that answers the question, but those old-fashioned values, I think, of honesty, integrity, respect are so very important. If you get those right, I think it lasts you in good stead throughout your career.
Is it possible to work in coaching with a professional team without professional experience from a young adult age, or do you have to have certain qualifications like another job in order to coach a certain level?
You have to have qualifications, as I say, levels 1 to 5. But there's many other youth awards and psychology awards, etc., medical awards. But in terms of football coaching, levels 1 to 5 are the UEFA qualifications. And level 1, as I say, allows you to go and work with a park team or a boys or girls team, etc. So your mums or dads can get that level 1, and it's I think it's now 1 week or 2 week course. So that's a very easy qualification. But then you build up from the level 2 again, more detail, but still a very easily attainable qualification. Level 3 sees you move up to a high level. If you want to work in the academies, working with more talented players, more serious, semi-pro or part-time teams, then you have to have your level 3, which is it used to be 1 year. Maybe that might have changed now, Joe. It's when you get to level 4, you have to have that qualification. Now, going back to your question, if you want to work in a professional game and you're young, where are you getting your experience from? I worked at that small regional bank. I didn't go straight in at the highest level up here, turning over billions of dollars. We had to work your way through. It took me 10 years before I moved from that smaller bank. So I'm not saying it's that lengthy period, but you have to give yourself the best chance of success. Now, that might mean a young female or male coach working with a young team, progressing to an older team, having some experience as an assistant with an adults team, and then building it all the time, taking your qualifications. But just give yourself the best chance of success. Can you do it? Absolutely. But just make sure your parameters are realistic and still challenging.
Viewers also asked, what do you look for personally when recruiting young players? Are there any specific indicators that you use or any particular things that you look out for?
Yeah, it depends what age. I mean, I'm working with first teams. So when you say young players, are you talking about 18, 19, 20? Or are you talking about much younger age groups? So again, if you're in the academy, you're looking for enthusiasm. You're looking for natural athletic skills, coordination, hand-eye move. These type of basic human skills that you look for. But you look for the enjoyment. When they're young players, you can have almost 11 months between two identical players in terms of their school age. You can have that August birthday, September birthday, etc. So you can have a massive gap in maturity, in growth rates in children. So again, all of these factors have to be taken into account to make sure you hopefully select and choose wisely. And people will come on. You can't. I'm amazed when they discard children at such an early age. They're too small or too lightweight. They're going to grow at the older age group in terms of young players. Again, you're looking for people who have development potential. You see attributes that you like, certain qualities that you like. You see an enthusiasm. You might see pace. You might see stamina. You might see spring, technical ability. But you look for someone, I think, who has that real potential to develop further, and you can play on that development.
Guest 380 has said, "Hi Mark, hope you're well. I'm a student at UCFB Wembley studying football business and media. What advice would you give to me or others in order for myself as an individual to be successful?" So I think that's kind of a broad, what sort of things would you take away from that?
Well, they're doing football business, and I've done some good work with the UFCB and really like what they do up at Manchester and obviously Wembley as well. And it's a really good question, because I think football business is a great area to get into. The game, the standings, the global game of football. I mentioned the growth market of North America, for example. If I was a young guy now, or a young lady doing that at a university, I would really be pursuing different markets. You have a lot of people look for the same jobs over here, but looking at the conference clubs and National League clubs, experience in terms of CFOs, CEOs, finding your way through. Again, you can't go and work for Liverpool, City, Tottenham, Chelsea straight away. You have to work your way up. Where's a market that might be receptive? North America. So you have the MLS, you have the USL below it. Is that a market potentially where young football, you come out with the qualifications and you can really start to learn and have great experiences in a foreign market? So I think I would obviously look at the passion. Is it the passion of the student concerned? Where do they see themselves going? What do they think? Where's that inner path I spoke to you about? What is their real desire? And where do they want to go? Here? They want to go overseas? They've got choices now. It's a global market. And I just think, for me, really know your market. Try and specialize where you can. Are you looking at CEO type route? Are you looking finance? Are you looking media within the club? Are you looking commercial within the club? Try and get a clear idea where you can, or maybe get the experience of all of those markets, Joe, by having like a job placement, for example, for 6 months at a football club. Can that be arranged to give you the opportunity to then find out where your passion really lies?
And I think that question ties in quite well, actually. Guest 714 has asked, is it possible for young people to get into football management without completing their badges immediately? So what's probably like entry-level work experience equivalent then for football management?
I think please take this the right way to the person asking the question, but is it possible for a young player to get into football management with no qualifications? That's what you're basically saying. Is it possible for me to get into media without any experience? Can I get into cookery without any experience? I'm not being derogatory. I'm just trying to be really honest here. You've got to give yourself the best chance of success. Why do you want to be a manager? Do you see yourself as Gareth Southgate? Well, how did Gareth get there? Gareth has gone through a outstanding playing career, all the qualifications, club management, Middlesbrough, etc. Everything. Worked with Villa, and under 21s. He has done his apprenticeship. He served his time, and he's really, he's worked so hard to get to the pinnacle of the game as England manager. So what does What do they want? Do you want to be the trappings of success of a manager? Do you really want to work it and see it as a long-term career when 20, 30 years down the road, you are a prominent household name? Is that what you're looking for? So I'm saying this in a very respectful way. Give yourself the best chance. The best chance is to gain valuable experience, gain qualifications. When you go on a course, as I said to you, here I am, senior dealer at Royal Bank of Scotland, and I'm on a course with Ray Wilkins. I'm on a training pitch doing 11v11. I'm playing, and the team, I think, was Ray Wilkins, Adrian Heath, Chris Coleman, Simon Davis, Clayton Blackmore. We had top people, Premier League players on the pitch. I then do my pro license, and I got people like, Brad Friedel and Phil Neville and Scott Parker and household names, Ian Wone, top people. But on these courses, you meet people who open doors for you. As I said to you, Diogo Matos, one call, Sporting Lisbon, opened all of those doors to all the other European clubs. All I'm saying is, give yourself the best chance of success, do the work, apply yourself. And if it is your passion, it won't seem like work.
And we've just got time for one more, but just as well for anyone who's watching, just so you know, that there'll be a follow-up blog as well with as many answers as Mark possibly can to the questions that you've asked. So if we didn't get a chance to get around to your question today, then keep following our social media and we'll let you know as and when that comes out. And Mark will do his absolute best to get those answered for you, because there are so many questions. It's great to see that so many people are involved. Just quickly before we move on, guest 677 has asked, how did Mark transition from a youth development-based coach into a performance results-based managerial coach? What were the key changes that you adopted in the environment? That's quite the question.
Great question. Well, it's a good question because it's a subject which causes so much debate, and people will talk to you and they'll be very idealistic and they'll say it's about development, it's about the player, it's not about winning. And of course, that's very true. But then there gets a point, these girls might be 13, 14, 15. They're leaving this academy environment where it's not about winning. Results are totally irrelevant. It's about the performance, how their development, their enjoyment, technical base, etc. And then suddenly they're in the youth team and they're playing in the FA Youth Cup and they're away at Leicester City. They want to win. They have to win. And it's getting the balance right. So as a coach, yes, if you're working with senior youth players, you've got to recognize that they're going to leave you and go into that environment where it is a results-based industry. And it's all about, you can win 1-0 and you can have a shocking performance, scrape a late goal. All the fans will see is 1-0. As a coach, you dissect the performance and we were poor. And I've often got more satisfaction we lost 3-0 to Cardiff, QPR. We were outstanding. We absolutely battered them and lost 3-0. Don't ask me how. But it's those type of performances. And you look at it, but it reads Cardiff 3, QPR 0. And you can't get away from that fact. So it is a very good question. I'm not skirting the answer. I'm just saying you have to, as a person, individual, you have to understand that when they leave, there's a point where they leave, almost fly the nest, and they're now going to be in a highly competitive world. In the academy, you'll have a situation where you might play 4 quarters of a game, everyone gets the same pitch time. They're not very far away from 4 or 5 top professionals wanting the same shirt. You have 25 in a squad, only 11 can start. And you can imagine they're all highly competitive animals, eager to succeed, wanting to play. And you've got to deal with that scenario and make sure they are prepared to deal with that level of competition, if that makes sense.
One word answer for me. What's more stressful, trading or managing?
One word. Thanks for that. I would say football. And if I can tell you quickly why, it's only because of the emotion involved. There's 50,000 at iBox, so there's the emotions of so many people involved. That's the pressure that makes a difference.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Mark, that's really been quite the session today. Do you know, the thing that really got me though was the passing thoughts of yours about having a good work ethic and importantly identifying your strengths and weaknesses as well. So once again, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. Just a reminder as well that we're also raising funds for the Children's Trust, and we know that QPR are working with them as well, which is the UK's leading charity for children with brain injury. Now, Their ambition is to ensure that all children with brain injury and who have the neurodisability have the opportunity to live and have the best life possible. And every donation goes towards helping these children with their rehabilitation. So if you'd consider donating, no matter how small the amount, please do so via the link that's on screen now. That's thechildrenstrust.org.uk/donate. Anything that you can give, big or small, to help the Children's Trust, that'd be great. Use the link that's on screen now. And we hope that you've enjoyed this Learn Lounge session. And don't forget to spread the word by using #LearnLounge. Coming up this afternoon, Andy Crawford will be joining us at 2:30 to talk to us about everything that you need to know about getting onto a career in sport. So these two sessions will go perfectly hand in hand. So make sure that you tune in for that one. Thanks again to Mark for being here. And that's all from us on this episode of Learn Lounge. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.